Hey, it's your girl Beth, and this is On the Sofa with Esther. Check it out every Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m.
Bumped into an old friend of mine. He said, hey, Jim. I said, hey, baby. He said, what's happening? Ain't nothing to it. He said, let's go around the corner up here a couple of blocks, get a little taste, swing out a little bit with some of these brothers. The boogie.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to On the Sofa with yours truly, Esther Austin. And I am doing more tributes to the late, great Jimmy Thomas. And in the room with me today, I have four incredible people. The energy is just being bam, because, you know, they go way,
way
back. You've heard of the party people. So before we go any further, though, I'd just like to introduce each and every one of them. So we have the musician and singer vocalist, is that right, Roy Hamilton? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, singer.
Fantastic.
Extraordinaire.
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
and then we have Tony Cook. Tony, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Tony Cook, right? Former drummer, former producer, former whatever.
Excellent. Thank you, former Tony Cook, former. And then we have Yasman James. Yasmin, tell us who you are.
Well, I'm a singer-songwriter, actress, and producer.
Excellent. So we are here today to celebrate and commemorate the late Jimmy Thomas, who meant so much to all of us in our own way. But he seems to have created such a legacy amongst the people who knew him. The energy, I would say, you know, for the first time in a long time, the energy of people coming together through one person, the energy is incredible. There's such an honoring, there's such love, and there's such happiness as well. I mean, you know, these are happy people. You know, that's just what his energy seems to exude. So yeah, Yasmin, let's start with you, my dear. You know, what are your first and fondest memories of Jimmy?
Do you know what? You should have really started with Tony on this one, that's for sure. But do you know what? I just remember being in the studio with Jimmy when we did those tracks, Tony, in Bloemfontein Road. Do you remember?
Right.
Back in the day, and Phil Harding was there with us as well, Roy and Fiona.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So that's my first memory of him, really. But maybe I met him before, Tony, because you're going to be able to fill that little gap that I have missing in my memory about exactly when. Because I think maybe we met him with you after a gig one time.
Over to you, Tony.
Jimmy was starting his label. Right, Osceola Records.
Osceola Records, that's right.
And I had just moved to England, and a good friend of mine, Cliff White, he introduced me to Jimmy, and he figured that myself and Jimmy should get together because what I was trying to do, Jimmy was more in tune with it than the other record companies, right? So anyway, he put me and Jimmy together, and we toured around with a few ideas, right? And then so Jimmy decided, well, we need an artist, you know, because I want to actually run my record company. You know, he had a few tracks of his own that he had put on the label at first, but he needed some artists because he wanted to make it an official record company. So he decided, well, let's put you on the label, right? So I had a few tracks that I had recorded, and so we decided, well, okay, we'll remix these tracks and put it out. And so we needed a name. So I decided, well, we'll call the group the Party People. So Jimmy, he decided, well, we need to tie your name in with it because you're pretty known. So at first we'll call it Tony Cook and the Party People, right? So my idea was to launch the party people and let the party people be their own group, you know. So we tried to keep it loose like that.
Mhm.
So that way, the first few records that we put out just to get it started was Tony Cook and the Party People.
That's right.
And of course, we needed some party people, you know. So I was up to a friend of mine's office, Tony Hall. You remember Tony Hall, Roy?
I do actually. Yeah,
I remember Tony Hall. Yeah, I used to check out Tony Hall.
Yeah, I was up to Tony Hall's office, and Tony Hall introduced me to you, Roy.
Okay.
Right? That's how I met you.
Yeah, because he used to manage The Real Thing, didn't he?
The Real Thing.
Wow.
Yeah, he was The Real Thing manager.
And he used to manage Links as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and you brought Yasman, right?
Okay.
And I can't
All right.
remember who brought Fiona, right? But but with the three of y'all, then we finally had the party people, you know.
Right.
So again, you know, we released a few tracks in there, right? And then we started trying to pull the group separate, right? And if y'all remember, we released a 45 with just the three of y'all as the party people.
Yeah.
Right? That was our attempt to break y'all from me. And y'all become your own group, you know.
Yeah, because in the interim, when you'd gone away,
right,
we were actually promoting those singles. Like
that's
we
right,
had like a little half-hour show going on, and we were doing
right.
it.
That's right. That's right. Y'all going around town, starting to get popular, you know. Yeah, y'all had a thing going.
That's right. Yeah.
We certainly did.
Yeah, but you know we you know as we went, you know, of course we got caught up in record company politics, you know.
Yeah.
And then Half Moon came along, right? And Half Moon again they wanted to launch things with Tony Cook, right? So we had the one track that we recorded, Roy. You did the rap on.
Do what you want to do.
Do what you want to do.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Roy, go on.
Yeah,
That's right.
So we dropped that, and that did real good, you know.
Yeah.
Can you put that, Roy? I mean, are you feeling a little sort of shy? Come on.
Take it. I was listening because it's like I was wondering how we actually got together with Tony, because I was talking to Yasman.
Yeah, because we're a bit confused about how we got together with you.
Yeah, we wasn't
Tony.
sure. I was like, because I know Phil Harding, and I know Phil Harding knows Jimmy Thomas, but that wasn't the link. The link was Tony Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. The link was Tony Hall. That's what that was the link, Tony Hall.
Yeah, because when I used to write songs and stuff, I used to go to Tony Hall's office in Carnaby Street,
right,
and play him my tunes, and he'd tell me whether he likes them or not. and I did something else with a band called the Majors with Kenny Simon, and Kenny Simon is now fronting
he's in Hot Chocolate. He's fronts Hot Chocolate.
Hot Chocolate. And he was in a group and Tony Hall was managing them. So that's another connection with Tony Hall.
Right.
But I was like, when I met Tony and you know what, Tony, I never realized that you played the guitar as well.
A little bit.
Because you played, I think it was on the James Brown show, you played the drums, and then they gave you a guitar.
Oh, you talking the bass?
Was it a bass you played? It
looked like you might not realize it, but I played bass on some of our tracks.
Really?
You wasn't in the studio, but I played bass on Do What You Want to Do.
I didn't know that.
I played bass on Socket in the Pocket.
Yeah, wow.
Pocket in the Pocket. Oh my God.
Because you're a bad bass player.
On Remember You Took My Heart? And,
Yeah.
Is it? You played bass on it well.
Slow song, and I played bass on some of Jimmy's songs, right?
Is it? Oh wow.
He redid Hang Right On In There, Hang Right On In There, right?
Yeah.
And I played the bass on one version that he already had recorded. And then another version, we re-recorded the whole thing, and I played drums on it.
Wow, because that was a hit, wasn't it? That was like a Northern Soul hit.
That's right.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, I didn't realize.
Really, that's amazing.
Yeah, because Tony Cook can play the guitar. He can play that guitar.
And Phil Hardin, off and on, Phil Hardin always was there.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah,
and it's really funny, Esther, because you know what? Unbeknownst, the thing is, I knew Tony Hall, but in a different way. Okay. And it's really funny that Roy actually has that link as well, because I had that link with with links really from from back in the day. My sister used to manage a band. Oh my God! Anyway, it's a long story. We haven't got time for it here. I think basically it's strange how all our paths converged.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm noticing that with everybody that I've interviewed that knew Jimmy, we were talking, I think it was Ian Woolley, when I interviewed him a few days ago, how he met Jimmy was at a station, and he was saying that they were dressed very similar, and he looked over and he walked over to him and introduced himself. And then he mentioned someone's name, and Jimmy goes, "But that's a good friend of mine as well." So there's just this really interesting synergy between.
It's a really small kind of musical world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Artistic world. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's incestuous.
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So like being in the studio with Tony and Jimmy is like I learned quite a lot. As I think on a previous Zoom, I was saying that when I was in the studio, Tony Cook, every time I sang to the mic, he would say, "You're not on the one. You're not on the one." And I used to think, I don't know what Tony's talking about, And I tried to sing again, and he said, "No, you're not on the one. You're not on the one." And now I know what he meant. Now I know what you meant. I think I finally found the one. So
right.
kind of, it was like a musical journey, and I guess it was like almost like they were teaching me the trade. I mean, they were like great musicians, playing high profile great musicians from America, and it was like it was great for me to actually be a part of what they were doing. So that was great. Yeah. So thanks for that.
You was great to work with in the studio that way, Roy. And the three of y'all, you Yasman and Fiona, y'all just was perfect. Y'all was perfect.
It was a really nice. It was a really good vibe, and the sound was really nice. Even the harmonies were really nice as well. It's like. Roy said that there was some tracks that we did with the JVs. I don't remember that. Was that the one where we had to do the clapping? I don't know. There was a time then it was Martha Hive, I think the JV.
Martha, yes.
And they were doing a session, and they asked us to come in on the session, and that was like the first session I've ever been involved with. I didn't know what I was doing. And they was like, they basically took me under their wing, and Yasmin as well. And then I don't even know what we did. We probably just did hand claps or something, as Yasmin said. I just remember the hand claps was very integral to the piece. Do you know what I mean? And getting it right as well, like really making sure it was on the one, probably. on the ball. This is And all that is through Jimmy Thomas.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy
yeah.
Thomas is the link that linked up everybody, and the coolest guy I've ever known.
Yeah.
Like he was
Yes,
just
he
really
was.
cool, and
Yeah, yes, he was cool, laid
Yeah.
back.
And
He
he
was amazing.
never really talked about what he did, like with the Ike and Tina Turner show. He never really mentioned that. I didn't know too much about it at the
Yeah,
time.
I didn't know about that
It was
either.
only after, because he never really boasted or talk about anything. He's very, very down to earth. Yeah.
My dog keeps coming in, and I'm trying to keep him.
Yeah. All right.
Aw.
But you know, it's really interesting because like I said in the previous interview, that the more I speak to people that Jimmy knew, the more that I realize he was like a Mary Poppins basket, wasn't he? There was so many things that he did. And every time I hear someone say, "Oh, well, Jimmy did this, Jimmy did that," it's almost like there was so much to him. But he did a lot, but he gave a lot. What do you say about that, Tony?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
he did a lot and he gave a lot, right? Yeah, you know, a lot of things you might have thought that he wasn't involved in or up on, and you look around and Jimmy was there. You know, yeah. Myself, you know, he pushed me to do a lot of things.
Excellent.
Right? You know, he even pushed me to sing a little bit. He said, "This is a track. We had a track. Yeah, this is a track you need to sing, right?" And he pushed me to sing a little bit. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you know, Tony, they were sharing that before when Jimmy said that, Roy said that before you came into the group, so to speak, you were famous before. Now, can you just share a little bit about what you were famous about? Was that your stint with James Brown? Was that time with James Brown?
Well, mainly James Brown, right? I was James Brown drummer. At the age I was officially James Brown drummer at the age of 18. The first time I played behind Brown, I was 15 years old.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah. I had my own band, and it's a long story. We got called to play some gigs, right? He had a radio station back then, and they would call for us, and so we would go down and play the gig, and Mr. Brown would come on the stage and sing with us, you know. So the first time I played with him, I was 15 years old, you know. And he said, "Son, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 15, Mr. Brown." He said, "Son, you're too young, but when you graduate from school, come see me, and I have a job for you."
Sounds like
Coincidence, after I graduated from high school, he sent for me and hired me into the band, right? So he pulled me out there first officially, right? And then I got a chance to play behind Etta James, you know.
Oh, wow.
And then I was contacted to bring a group to Europe, and we did a lot of recording for Frank Farian and Precious Wilson, you know. Yeah. and then I played with some other groups or acts you might not figure. You might not know this guy, Lattimore. Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of Lattimore. Let's straighten it out. Right.
Yeah, I know that tune. Yeah.
I played with Lat. You know, Lat's a good friend of mine.
Okay, that's a classic tune.
I told Lat I played with him for 3 months, and I ended up playing with him 3 years off and on. You know, yeah. So
I remember you told me that story about how you joined the JVs. You know, I remember you told me that story.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. And Yasmin, and for you, you know, what did Jimmy represent to you? Because, you know, he was so many things to so many people. What did he represent to Yasmin?
I didn't really get to know Jimmy that well. I think I only worked with him in the studio, right? Tony, Roy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
I think
I know in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my memory of Jimmy is working with him in the studio. He's like, he was really on it, got to get it right. Like Roy said, it's got to be right, otherwise it's not right, basically.
Yeah. They're perfectionists. Yeah,
and that kind of stressed me, I have to say. But generally speaking, I didn't really know him that well. I just knew him from doing the sessions with like doing the tracks.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy loved.
Because I don't remember seeing
Jimmy
Jimmy
loved
after
y'all. Jimmy
I don't
loved
remember
y'all.
seeing him.
If you didn't know it, Jimmy loved y'all. He said y'all was the perfect group,
Yeah.
And he, when I would go back to the States for a minute and come back, Jimmy, he'd take care of things, right? Because he was definitely into y'all. He was fun and glad to work with y'all, Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to work with.
Yeah.
He kind of opened it up for me anyway, like as a writer, because you got you the saxophone player in the JB, Sinclair Pinckney.
Yeah.
I think you got him his track called Four Seasons, I think it was.
That's right.
And you got me to write lyrics over it.
That's
and
right.
It was on Jimmy's label.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was like amazing for me to write.
Well, it's a lot of tracks. It's a lot of tracks that we recorded that wasn't released. It should still be released. Yeah, and we have to.
I don't have those copies, and that's probably why there is a bit of a memory loss.
All right. Yeah.
I just know I only had one copy, which was the "Remember You Took My Heart," and the one with me, Roy, and Fiona on it. That's it.
I've got that one. Yeah, I've got the other one.
I haven't got any of the other ones because I think we used the tape when we went out to go and do the gigs.
Yeah.
Like we had a tape that we just used and we performed to like a back-in. Yeah,
that's right. We did. Yeah, we used the backing track.
Oh, you remember the Brazilian version of that record?
I remember. Yeah, I remember you learning it in the studio. I think you had like an interpreter.
Well, we did a Japanese version.
Yeah, that's right. I remember the Japanese.
That's when they made you do that song, Roy. Was that when you had to learn to do it in those different languages?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, the Japanese version. That was something. Yeah, the lady. I think she was a lady teaching me the Japanese. I had to sing it in Japanese.
Yeah.
Roy had to sing those songs in different languages.
Yeah.
In particular. I remember that, Roy. That was really funny.
And check that out as well.
Yeah, that was an experience. Yeah.
You was powerful, Roy. You was powerful. And you make that turnaround on that record. Casabuco, whatever you said. You was powerful the way you did it.
That was a really nice tune. Yeah, I really like that tune. Yeah.
Roy's really funky anyway. He's a funky singer. So let's face it. With the two pretty chicks on the side, with him giving it with his sexy look. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And us thought we just like, I've got some photos. I've got to dig them out and send them to you. You will die.
I've known Yasman from the late 70s, I think. The late 70s I've known Yasman. So like we go back a long way, don't we?
Because I was singing before I met Roy.
Yeah.
I was even before I met Tony, as a matter of fact. I had my own band. I was doing lots of different things before I met these guys anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. So you were all it's all about talent and connections, and this is all about memories and nostalgia.
But Jimmy definitely brought the party people together, that's for sure.
He did. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
You're good self, Tony, of course.
But you said something there when you said Jimmy brought the party people together, but it seems as if he's brought so many different people together in so many ways as well. And sort of in winding down, Jimmy's left a legacy. And what do you feel, especially you, Roy, when I listen to you, there's just so much there. And also yourself, Tony, in terms of your relationship to Jimmy. What do you feel he's left you with? What is that sort of undeniable maybe attribute that he's left with you that has, walked you through life?
I think his approach, his attitude, his professionalism, the way he treated me as a person, the way he treated everybody, and he had a gift, of the gift of bringing people together, and the gift of music, and the gift of laughter. I always remember his laugh, his very infectious laugh, and he played a big part in my musical history, and he's up there in heaven somewhere, and I'll say thank you to him for what he's given me. So big respect to Jimmy.
Oh, that's so nice.
That's nice. Tony, what about you?
Well, Jimmy taught me a lot of things. He taught me how to be in charge with not being pushy to people, because some people are in charge of something, but they have an attitude. I have to be the boss. I am the boss, right? You can be the boss, but you can be laid back. Right? You don't have to show that, and you get more out of people when you are laid back and let them be yourself and you be yourself, right? So Jimmy taught me that because he was that way. Jimmy would be in charge, right? But Jimmy be cool, and you never knew he was in charge of something, until somebody told you or you look around, but it wasn't that big of a deal to him. It was about getting the job done, right?
Definitely.
And you don't have to abuse the job, you don't have to abuse. If you got some kind of power, you don't have to abuse that power,
And Tony was always cool with me in the studio. He kind of left it open for me to kind of express myself and giving me help at the same time without being too bossy. So
he took you under his wings, Roy.
He did.
A lot of people took you under their wings, Roy, didn't you? Didn't they?
I know. But I'm thankful. I'm truly thankful to a lot of people, really. And
Excellent. And then
Tony took me under his wings. I don't know about anything else. I can honestly say that.
I could turn you upside down, but
no, I'm saying Tony took me under his wing. If anything, because obviously Jimmy warmed to you, but Tony obviously warmed to me.
Okay.
Which is why we did what we did.
That's right.
And you enjoyed it as well. Well, this has been a really nice sort of it's almost like nostalgic catching up. And
it was, yeah.
But also, it's just this constant and continual celebration of the man called Jimmy Thomas. And it's funny because people are speaking to people about doing these little sessions that I'm doing, and people are like, oh my gosh, everybody wants to give their tribute now, which is really nice because it just shows the love that's out there for him, doesn't it? So if more people want to just have their say, send them my way, because we're just capturing something that's going to touch people's lives, and you guys are legacy builders as well as Jimmy, and that's huge. Yeah. That's huge.
I was talking to Bill Harding today, and I was telling him about this Zoom meeting, and he said to me to say hi to Tony and Yasman. Yeah, a big hi to Phil Harding.
Yeah. Tell Phil to look out for me. I'm gonna contact him.
Okay, I will do.
You should have a Zoom reunion, you guys, really.
Yeah, really, that'd be so brilliant. Because they would really put a lot of things like there's like missing gaps. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And because
that's
it
right.
was a long
Filling
time
in,
ago,
yeah.
and it was so unfortunate that it didn't progress where it should have progressed, because there were lots of people that were really interested in the group. From my side, anyway.
That's
I mean,
right.
Steve Walsh was really a great supporter of the party people. He loved us, absolutely.
Yeah.
Black Echoes, they really loved us as well. You know, there were a lot of people that were really supportive of us, it's mad.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we need to do another session just to talk about the party people.
That's right.
To get all of you guys on, because that would be really cool. I can do that for another segment of On the Sofa with Esther.
That's right. And thanks to you as well, Esther.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Well, it's important, you know.
You're bringing everybody together.
And then what I'd like to do one day also, Tony, is to sit down with you and to unpeel you. Maybe I get Martha High on as well. I know she's busy touring. We spoke some months ago when I interviewed her. We always just giggle through our interviews. You know, maybe just giggle through them, but it would be a blessing to capture, you know, all your stuff, because it's important. It's just so important. And, you know, every time you all open your mouths, there's more history to unpeel, not just from Jimmy, but from everything else. So you know, capture all that. And Yasman,
it's all interconnected.
Yasman.
Yeah. It's all interconnected, isn't it? It's all interconnected, really, because when I think about all the people that I've connected with just through music, it's amazing.
Yeah,
you know, the talent.
They're connected with like
oh my god,
Tony and James Brown and Jimmy Thomas and Tina Turner. You know, it's like they're legends. You know, they're legends.
Yeah, really.
So Tony's a legend and Jimmy's a legend.
Yeah.
So I'm just proud to know them. Really.
Yeah, definitely. It was an honor.
How do you do it? Hi, I'm Leo. I eat the lion's share. Aries, I give it a good battering. Libra, I like to weigh up the alternatives. Wait, hey!
Cancer, and I'm a shell man myself.
Aquarius, and sometimes I get carried away. Virgo, and this is my first one.
Capricorn, mind if I butt in?
Scorpio, one nip from me and it's history.
Pisces, and I dive right in. Gemini, and I like to slurp it. Bite it. Slurp it. Bite it.
Sagittarius, I could eat 2 or 3 on a trot. Taurus, and I go at it like a bowl of sweet chop. How do you do it?
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gents, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to a tribute that we're doing for the late Jimmy Thomas, an incredible man, and interviewing lots of people who knew him in different capacity. And so I just thought I'll be able to get an idea of how you experienced Jimmy, what he meant to you, and also the legacy that he's left in your own world. And so today I have with me Ian, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, well, I'm Ian Woolley, and I'm the online editor and writer for the Beat magazine. And I knew Jimmy as a friend, really, rather than actually on stage performing with him.
Okay. And Matt, if you can just give a brief introduction to who you are.
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Matt Cowley. I am a professional drummer. And I played drums, had the honour of playing drums with Jimmy for quite a long time, sort of the back end of his life. And we did quite a lot of touring and recording together.
Okay.
And he became a really, really good friend.
Okay. And I'm going to ask this to yourself, Ian. You know, you said you're a good friend of Jimmy's. What was it about Jimmy that was so special? Because he was a very unique individual. What was that uniqueness to you about him?
I think it was from the off, really. The first time I ever met him, I felt I'd known him years. And that doesn't come across very often, especially in the musical world, as you know. But the first time I met him, the warmth and the love that man had inside him it flowed from his body. And, you know, straight away I knew it would be a relationship that we would meet up again and again. And I was just fortunately to interview him quite recently, just before he passed away.
Excellent. And from that interview, Ian, what did you take away from that particular interview? Was it quite poignant because it was, you know, the last time that you had that opportunity?
Well, it was. I met him at his house in London, and we chatted about his career. Unfortunately, the video never came out, but I did have some photographs from that meeting, and it was quite a unique day because the heavens opened, and Jimmy was so upbeat about what he was doing with his new album, and he played me a few tracks from it, and in the studio, and it was like it could be something really, really big for him after a lot of doing the music and composing it and writing the lyrics and stuff, and I was thinking, yeah, you know, these tracks were excellent. You know, Jimmy still had it. Popeye still had it.
Yes. And what about you, Matt? What were some of your experiences with Jimmy? And you know, how are you feeling about all those experiences now? What's that left within you?
Just hearing Ian speak there, you probably saw me nodding away and just grinning. You know, as soon as I think of Jimmy, I just. You know, apart from the loss, the grief, and everything else that we experience when you lose somebody you love and is very close, you know, very dear to you, means a lot to you. My biggest memories are the same thing. I just smile, I laugh inside. Jimmy just exuded warmth. He just had, and as Ian said, from the off, it was just love and warmth. And humour, what a sharp sense of humour! It was just constant. The jokes, the you know, and the stories. Jimmy's, you know, what a raconteur. One of the best storytellers I'll ever have the honour of knowing. You know, and when I very first met him, I was thinking about this the other day. I think the very first meeting was actually a gig he was doing at the 100 Club, and I knew I'd be doing some shows. We were doing some shows together coming up. And through our friends Danny McCormack and Paul Corrie, who were playing with Jimmy, I think it was an Otis Grand gig. I can't quite remember. But I can remember going down and Danny introducing me to Jimmy. And, you know, Jimmy cracked some joke and we had a bit of a laugh. And then we were talking about, cause I kind of came through the mod scene and everything. And I remember mentioning the hits that he had with on the Northern Soul scene. And he was like, oh, yeah, you know, and he was kind of pretty dismissive about, not dismissive. It was just, okay, yeah, I did that. But he was more eager and more, you know, he was still chasing the muse. It was about what was around the corner that excited him, I think, you know? And knowing that we were going to be doing some shows, you know, and I remember him talking about the 100 Club, reminding him of doing the Chitlin circuit, for example.
Yes.
You know, and he said, oh, they're just the same, you know, and he was mopping his brow. He always had his hanky mopping his brow when he came off stage, you know, and we were chatting away about it. And then I think it was maybe a couple of weeks later, I called him to arrange a meeting to go at the airport or something. And it was like that conversation was like we just picked up from the first conversation we had. And the rest of the time that I knew him was exactly the same. You know, I could go a few months, you know, especially through pandemic, we texted and stuff. But, you know, there'd be times I didn't speak to Jimmy. Then he'd call me or I'd call him. And it would just pick up from the last conversation. You know, it just...
that thread, isn't it? There was always that thread of that connection because it was the same with me. We'd connect on occasion, and it was almost like saying, "Hello, Daddy." It felt like that because he made you feel that way, and he was always so cool. And he would always say, "Young lady, you're doing a really good work. You know, you gotta keep going." And he had that way. You gotta. He would sort of, he twinkled up his nose. He's got that way. He used to twinkle up his nose when he was talking.
Totally.
And he
totally.
was.
I think.
Sorry, apologies. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you just reminded me of something else that he was. I know I've talked about his love and his humour and all that. Jimmy was one of the most encouraging people.
Yes.
You know, and not he would never diss anybody. You know, but he would. I mean, there was a show I couldn't do. Somebody else did the show, and I remember him calling and saying, "Hey, why aren't you doing the show?" I said, "Oh, it's fine. So and so's doing it." And he said, "Well, he ain't you." And he's not putting the other guy down.
Yeah.
He's giving me that boost that, hey, thanks, man. Thanks, Jimmy. You know,
Brilliant.
Sorry I can't be there on this one or whatever, you know, but yeah.
And what was some of your, I mean, you spoke about, you've just both shared about knowing him, but Ian, what were, if you can think about it, some of your memorable moments, or a memorable moment that really stuck out? Because we've spoken about him in so many different ways, but is there something that really stands out about him? Because one's come to mind for me. So what about you, Ian?
Well, it was the first time we met, because this is a weird thing. I was in Blackpool, and there was a Northern Soul weekend going on there. And I've never go to them, but I wanted to see a bit of the dancing, you know, the legendary dancing in the ballroom, you know, the best place anywhere where you can perform dances and stuff. So I stuck my head round the door and watched a bit of it. And anyway, I was coming back, and I was at Preston railway station waiting for the train to London. And about 5 yards from me was this guy dressed head to toe in black leather, wearing his hat, scarf, black scarf. And I had virtually the same sort of clothes on, except I'm white, he was black. And I thought, I've got to speak to him, because he looked like my friend, you know, the colleague that I've written about, Jimmy Helms. And I thought, no, I will say something, because otherwise, if you don't, you regret it sometimes. So I said, excuse me. I said, but you don't have to look a lot like my friend Jimmy Helms. And he said, well, man, he said, he's my friend too. And wow. It was like from how you know, sort of weird is that? And so we both got on the train, and we both sat together. And when I heard his story, and of course he was in Blackpool that weekend to judge, he was the guest of honour to give the awards to these dancers. So he was a legend, and I didn't know about it, you know, at that time, because I wasn't writing for the music magazine or anything. I did, you know, that was, and we shared all the train down to London. When we got there, we exchanged contact details, and I rang him up regular. And another moment where I felt that I'd done a faux pas in a way was because I thought, with his strong American drawl, he lived in America. And when he said, I live in London, man, you know, and I said, oh, wow, we can meet up then. And he was going to come down here in the summer and stuff. And, you know, I was so saddened when I heard, you know, and shocked to hear that, you know, that Jimmy had gone. But he's left a legacy, hasn't he? He's left his music and and his love, you know, and everybody that was there for the tribute and a day for him. They all had great stories, didn't they? And about Jimmy.
Absolutely. And there's a collective energy I feel he's left amongst all of us. You know, there's that, I keep talking about that thread that I feel we've all got between us.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
That's his soul, that's who he was. And what about you, Matt? You know, what were some of your more sort of poignant and profound memories of Jimmy?
You know, one that really stands out, and I chatted to Paul Corrie about this. You know, obviously the day that we heard the news that Jimmy had passed, there was a lot of phone calls and a lot of texts and a lot of things. And you know, I spoke to Danny McCormack and Paul Corrie. We did a lot of the stuff with Jimmy together. Both absolutely gutted that they couldn't make it to the funeral day. You know, they don't live in London and stuff, but it was there was just a lot of you know, obviously a lot of stories and a lot of memories and all the rest of it. But the one that came out that was particularly poignant, and Paul and I talked about this for a long time on the phone, was the first time we went to South Africa. And I guess we hadn't realised how important that would be to Jimmy. To us, it was like, great, we've got another tour, we're doing some more shows, and we'd been booked to do a week at this club on just off Nelson Mandela Square. It's a great blues club, and they were really excited to have Jimmy there. And the first night we arrived, they kind of sprung on us that they were throwing this sort of welcoming jam night, basically. So all the musicians were there to see Jimmy. And Jimmy pointed out that, hang on, I'm not performing tonight, I'm performing the rest of the week. You know, but we all got up and played and, you know, kind of represented and did our thing on the jam. And Jimmy was like, well, no, man, I'm here to work for the week, you know. Everybody respected it and everything. And it was like, Jimmy, okay, you know, we've done the long flight and the traveling and all the rest. I can't remember if we stopped off and did some shows in Dubai on the way there or on the way back. I can't remember. But we were tired, you know, and we were there. And the first morning that we were going in to the town from the hotel was a little bit out of town. We were waiting for our cab. And Paul reminded me of this song. We were stood outside and we were all just sort of looking up at the sky. And I can't remember who said it first. It might have been Paul. It was just like, man, the sky just seems so much bigger in Africa. Like, what is this? It's just, it was almost overwhelming. It was just a different blue. You know, it just felt like the world, you know, you're at some kind of origin spot, right? You know, and it was just like, this just feels, I don't know. I mean, it was quite an overwhelming kind of thought, you know, and Jimmy was really sort of contemplative, quiet, sort of just looking up with his shades on, you know, obviously. And hey, Jimmy, how you doing, man? You okay? Because we know we were all tired the night before, we'd done this jam night and stuff. Hey, Jimmy, you okay? And he just said, man, I couldn't be better. You know, he took his glasses off and he looked at us all and, you know, kind of nodded and looked and he said, I'm under the African sky. And just that resonated so, and today now, kind of goosebumps thinking about it. I'm under the African sky. You know, it was a really important thing for him to be there. You know, and yeah, we, you know, to quote Jimmy, we kicked ass that week. You know, we had a great run of shows. It was phenomenal. But I think he was really fired up for being there, you know? It was like a spiritual moment, and we were all there together to share it, you know? Yes, we'd done Dubai and Qatar and all these places I never thought would go, but we got to go there with Jimmy, you know, and it was phenomenal doing that with him, you know, and hearing his stories all the while, you know, just keep us going, which is amazing. But that moment, just this amazing colours and the plants, different birds, different everything around us. And Jimmy was just looking up, and it was that line, just, man, I'm under the African sky, you know. And it was like, wow, okay, yeah, this is special, you know.
He was probably feeling that everything, you know, and even in a historical context, just feeling everything and just being so glad to be there in a way, maybe to honour that.
I think so. And more so, you know, when you hear the stories about the early days touring with Ike and all the rest of it, I mean, segregation and all this, you know, stuff that we can't comprehend in 2022, you know, let alone being a white bloke who was born in the northeast of England. Do you know what I mean? And you're just like, you read about it, you can try and understand. I weren't there. You can't relate to it, you know. And hearing Jimmy's stories, but being there at that moment was like, wow, okay, yeah, this is probably bigger and deeper than any of us will ever understand, you know.
Poignant at the same time. Yeah, and I guess sort of winding down, the other question that's coming to me is, you know, every time I talk to someone who knew Jimmy, I find out something else that he was about. He's like this little, you know, you got your Mary Poppins basket, keep putting things out. This is Jimmy, this is what he's done, because there's so much to him. And I must admit, I've interviewed him several times, but there's so much more I've learned from all of yourselves about him. You know, he's a bit like Aladdin's cave, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, a dark horse.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, what are your parting words I'm just going to leave that open. You know, it's not that you're saying goodbye, but what are your parting words for this particular segment and tribute to Jimmy?
I think from me personally, I think if anybody doesn't know what Jimmy's about, just listen to his music. And I do hope the album he was working on sees the light of day. I really hope that can be sorted with his family and everything, because it would be a legacy to him, a final legacy to him. But his music, the passion and the warmth that he put in when he sang those songs. If anyone hasn't listened to Jimmy, then get that music and listen to it, and then you'll see what Jimmy was all about.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian.
I agree with that, Ian. Totally. And I think from my perspective, you know, I could go on forever to answer that question, to be fair, Esther, because he gave us all so much. Personally, you know, it was just an honour to walk the earth with him and to be with him and to spend that time with him. You know, I mean, this is a guy who, you know, referred to Albert King as his godfather. You know, and yet, you know, I remember being around to see him and Kathy one day, and he's introducing me to some mad Square Pusher remix. Now, you know, I was like, wait, what? You know, and he'd been up all night listening to drum and bass. You know, and I was just like, whoa, you know, Jimmy, it's you know, he taught us so much. He was the connection back to this deep, you know, roots beginning of it all. As far as, you know, I'm concerned, you know, he was there, and the stories will live on forever. But Jimmy's youthfulness and his forward looking, you know, the chasing of the muse, the encouragement and all that, it's just there forever, you know. And it's in me, you know, and I'll pass on to my kids. Do you know what I mean? It's it's bigger than words can say. What I think Jimmy gave to us.
And I think, you know, it's about, I feel because of how he's touched all of our lives, it's become part of us, or we've had that awareness now that is who we could be. And, you know, as we're winding down, when I interviewed, I think it was Royal, I think they called him Mr. Cool, because he was always Mr. Cool, you know, like you said, with the glasses and the hat. Mr. Cool. So he's really left, you know, quite a lot in all of our lives. So, gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your tribute. And I'm just going to capture as many voices as I can, because this is a really, he's very symbolic in many, many ways.
Thank you, Esther.
All the best. Absolute pleasure, Esther. Thank you. And thanks for what you're doing.
And Matt, take care. Bye-bye.
Nice one, Ian. Nice to meet you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Jimmy Thomas. So you can see that I really am here with Jimmy Thomas. And Jimmy Thomas he used to perform with Ike and Tina Turner. So I'm going to be talking to this gentleman about so many different things on so many different levels, you know, but his time with Ike and Tina Turner, but also his time previous to that. And he was just talking about growing up in the deep South, as they say, and his experiences. So, Jimmy, let's continue the conversation. Right. Hopefully we can get good volume on this as well. Got this new gadget today. Right, so you were talking about your experiences, Jimmy, of growing up in the deep South. Can you just continue with that?
I mean, the part of the South I grew up in, a place called Osceola in Arkansas.
Speak up,
the place I grew up in is called Osceola, Arkansas. And where our town was, everything was segregated.
Wow.
You know, he went to a black school. He went to everything. I mean, that was the time before the civil rights movement, just before all that. And so I understand we were talking about anger and things like in our racial memories, etc. Although you grew up in that stuff and you take it for granted that's your situation that you're in. So however angry you might get, there's nothing you can do about that as an individual, because that's the world you're in.
When you say you can do nothing about that, do you mean the anger or the situation?
The anger or the situation. Because it was at that time that was it. You know, sure, you could stand up for yourself as best you could, but the system was such until however you stand up, if you're lucky, you wouldn't get beat or lynched or something.
Yes.
But, you know, as black people, we coped. You know, we had our world that we lived in. We mingled among some white people. But the anger that we're talking about now, that sometimes we feel.
You feel?
Yeah. I think that anger, you have to channel that into another kind of energy. Not just creative energy, but an energy of understanding of how the world is really shaped and how you contribute that anger into something positive. Because if you're just angry and shouting all the time, you get nowhere. Because all you're gonna meet is a negative.
Yeah.
Negative will attract negative. And so if you have to kind of, I hate the cliche of saying chill, but you have to chill out a bit. Understand what's going on, understand what you're feeling. Right? Once you understand why you're feeling the way you feel, and you're witnessing all the
atrocities or challenges.
That surround you all the time. But you still have to try to understand. You can't understand anything if you're angry, because the anger makes you just want to react.
Yes.
And just to react to a feeling, to an emotion, it can really be devastating to your long-term plan of trying to survive in any situation.
I like that word survive as well, because that's incredibly strong. And for you, Jimmy, growing up in a segregated community, what were some of the things that you saw, and how did they influence you to become who you are? Or some of the things that might have shaped you, some of the things that you saw that might have shaped your decision that you're going to try and do things differently.
I can't really focus on any. I can't recall any particular thing, except that the white kids were better educated, they went to a better school, they drove better cars, they had everything better than we had. But what we had was so powerful. They wanted to be like us.
Yes.
They wanted our music, they wanted everything we did, our dance, they wanted everything that we did. They thought that was the coolest thing. So the young white kids that I grew up around, no big deal as far as I'm better than you, or you're lesser than me. It was like, wow, man, that's really the way you do that. But the only thing I think that I can compare, that I can say that, well, I want to change this or that, was the opportunities, whether it be jobs or whatever. Because my old man, he was the kind of guy who turned his hand to anything. He was a crane operator, he was anything. And he could do pretty much anything. And he could build, he could do it. So he was like my role model.
Brilliant.
But I didn't just have one role model. There was loads of people around, all the black men around that was doing, and women.
Yeah.
So it was a quite healthy situation.